in the photograph.
Wow.
That one. So if you see along especially what you would consider the cutting edge of this piece,
yes,
there's a very uniform sharpened edge all the way around and into the scallops, and actually on the lower, what would be kind of a cutting edge of the back end of it, which we call the nay.
Yeah.
And that's also one of the ways that the ancient pieces are authenticated, because a lot of our modern reproductions completely overlook this feature. And in almost every single one of these blades, whether it's a dagger axe like this one here, or a P, which is a spear lance head, but also a dagger, or whether it's swords, what we see in a lot of these sharpened edges when you put them under magnification is that they were sharpened at two separate angles. One is almost completely perpendicular to the cutting edge, and one is off to about 30 degrees. And from weapon to weapon, there's some variation in that second, more angular sharpening line. But within a single piece, it would be almost uniform on every millimeter of blade edge. Wow. So on this piece in particular, you would be able to see under magnification perpendicular sharpening lines that were obviously done by some type of a file, whether it was a diamond file or a sand file or a metallic file. I personally don't know how you would tell the difference. But then you'll also see some that are at about that 30-degree mark, and that'll be consistent throughout every edge. Even though the edges are curved, at that particular point in the edge, it'll be very consistent. So on this piece, you have a sharpened edge that goes all the way around. If you look from the letter J and follow that upwards to the point, all the way around the top, all the way around the back, line E and line C. Now, the line between B and C is not sharpened. That's where a pole would have been. So the pole would have run vertically along, in the picture, what is line B.
Yeah. And
then those perforations in the blade would have been used for lashing to that pole.
Ah, interesting, interesting. I just see also that the edge is like a beveled edge. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's where those sharpening lines will be, is in that beveled edge.
Yes.
And go ahead.
Yeah. And is it that, like on bronze weapons, is it like steel weapons that the edge is put on them after casting? Did I understand you correctly?
Yes.
Okay.
In that ceremonial piece, it lacked the edge.
Oh,
but most of these, this would be a mainland China piece from Warring States period. Mm-hmm. And most of these weapons that I've seen all have that edge that was put on after the fact.
Mm-hmm. And what about the upper part, let's say from A to D, on the curved part on top? This is not sharpened, correct?
It is. It's actually sharpened, because this would have been on a pole. Most of the poles, if I remember my research correctly, were probably about 6 feet in length. So the people, they would have been taller than the person wielding it. The poles had a very distinct shape to them. They had, if you look at them in cross section, they would look almost like teardrops. And so that would allow you to index the pole in your hand, so you would know where the blade was facing while you were wielding the stick. And you would also know where the hammer edge of the blade was facing at the same time as well. And these blades were used not only to slash and to stab opposing warriors, but they would also be used to pull a horse's feet out from underneath them, to damage chariot wheels. The ends of the shafts would also be fitted with bronze fittings. It could be used as hammers. It was a very formidable weapon, and it was in use for at least 1,000 years in various forms, but all of them very similar to that.
Yeah. And Rich, I have a question regarding this. Do we know what type of shaft they used? Was it bamboo or was it wood, or do we know that?
I am sure that the scholars do based on what they have excavated, because many of them have been excavated with their original poles, but I don't have that information in front of me at the moment. I don't believe it was bamboo.
Okay.
But then again, a lot of these things, depending on who they were made for and who they were made by, you're going to use whatever you have available.
Of course.
But if I remember correctly, they were actually wooden shafts rather than bamboo shafts. And I'm sure different varieties, but that's something I can write down for our next meeting.
Sure. And then we have holes there, right? We have like 1, 2, 3, 4 holes. What are these holes meant for?
That would be to lash the weapon to the pole.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. And so the pole would typically have a split in it that the blade itself would fit down into the split. But that ridge that is line, where you see line B on here,
Yes.
that's actually a ridge that's running into and out of the screen, for lack of a better way to describe it. And so that would support the front of the shaft, and then the bindings would be directly on the opposite side of that, and they would wrap around the back of the shaft. And the shaft would typically extend over the top of the hammer end of this blade, about in the area where you see line D. And that second perforation, you can almost see in the corrosion where there's a vertical line, which likely delineates where the width of the shaft. So hopefully that.
Yeah. And I have another question. This is made of this is like bronze. It is copper alloy, correct?
Yes. And the later that they got, and this is a fairly late piece. This is late Warring States, which puts it, around 400 BC in that general area. The casting or the designs became more elegant. They became more decorative. I can't say for sure if this would have been a battle piece or a ceremonial piece, but it was definitely built as though it would be a battle piece.
Very interesting.
Can't say much more than that. And even that is kind of speculation at this point.
Okay. Okay.
This one's in a private collection up in New York right now. So.
Oh, very nice. Thank you. Oh God, this one. Yeah. Yes, I have seen pieces like that. Okay, this is magnificent. Could you tell us what it is, please?
That is a P, for lack of a better descriptive term. That's PI in the Mandarin, and it would be used typically as either a dagger and or a spear. And more than likely, it was designed originally to be a spear, and the dagger function would be secondary.
Okay.
But one of the great things about this particular piece is not only do you see that beveled, sharpened edge that we talked about that has the same microscopic characteristics, but you'll also see that pattern that's on the blade.
Yeah.
And depending on the period of the reference material that you access, there's different theories as to how this was done. But again, it appears as though it was done with some sort of a tin, or even there's some high silicone in these areas as well. When you put it on an electron microscope, you'll not only see tin in these areas, but you'll also see silicon. Sorry, I said silicone. But it appears as though these patterns were made by knotting some type of a string and then treating the blade with that string in place. And then of course, removing that string, and then it left the pattern of the impression on the blade. The last English written book that I was able to find that referenced the procedure for making these patterns on blades was somewhat inconclusive as to actually the process involved in doing this. But these blades are very difficult to find, and that's truly a treasure.
So it's a copper alloy, am I correct?
It is. It actually has the appearance of iron.
Yeah, it
even
does.
when you hold it in your hand. And when I first came across, definitely not iron. It is definitely bronze, 100%. I have not done an exact alloy analysis on it, but it is definitely has no ferrous material.
And do these geometrical lines have a specific meaning, or is it only decorative?
As far as I have been able to find, it is particularly decorative. But who knows what was in the mind of the person that made that, because it is an astounding piece.
It is. Is it in the United States, this piece, if I may ask?
It's, right behind me.
Okay, very nice.
It's changed hands a number of times, but it found its way back to me, and the decoration is still intact. It's a little bit easier to see in the photographs, but you can definitely see it there in the picture. And it's been a pleasure.
Second, please. Okay, so this is a beautiful piece, and you just showed it to us. And let us move on to the next piece. Okay, there are different pieces I see here, right? Okay, let's start.
They're very similar, but
yeah.
The two on the left are in my personal collection. The two on the right are from a piece of reference material. They're in a museum in China, but you can tell that the two in the sheaths also have the same decoration that the dagger on the left has.
Yeah, they do. That's right. Wow.
And they're beautiful pieces.
Are they daggers, Rich?
They are. The modern classification is a willow leaf dagger, because obviously it's shaped like a willow leaf. But I'm not sure if there was any other designation prior to that. But these come from the Bashu, which were also in Sichuan. We saw one from the Ba, the first decorative dagger axe that we had. But these come from similar culture later on. And the one thing about the Ba and the Shu was they had no written language. They had these symbols. And so these symbols, I don't know that anyone's ever been able to really decipher them to the level of being a language, but certainly they had some pretty significant meaning to the people at the time, because they appear on so many different artifacts from those cultures. Sadly, these have been broken and restored, but they are still lovely works of art.
Yeah, they are really. I mean, you know, the ones on the right, which have a scabbard, is fascinating. The way the scabbard is meant to hold the blades, right?
Yes, they are beautiful.
Yeah. Do you know? Okay, and then did I understand you correctly? For example, the handle, I assume, was made of an organic material, right?
Yes, probably wood. There's sometimes there's speculation that they may have been stone, but from everything that I've been able to uncover, they typically were wood, like you might see in a dagger or a knife built today. And nothing particularly fancy.
Oh, okay. And can you tell us something about more about the decorations on the blade? Is it possible to say something?
I have not been able to find much information about what those symbols mean, and it's a little depressing, I guess you could say, because, like I say, the designs are beautiful. The one that's more difficult to see is more like a phoenix.
Yeah, I do.
But the phoenix may not even be some mythological reference that they would have been aware of. So I don't know. But I am because these are in a personal collection. These are things that I always go back to and always try to find more information on. And if I find anything else on these or on their designs, I will definitely let you know. I do have something that I neglected to share with you. Some pencil drawings of these designs that were done from these original blades that make the decoration stand out a little bit better. And so that was another oversight on my part. I apologize for that, but I will get that to you afterwards if it will help in the presentation.
Sure, thank you very much. And where are these pieces located? I mean, those on the left, if I may ask.
They are in one of the Chinese state museums. The two on the left are in my collection.
Oh, magnificent.
So I was not fortunate enough to acquire a scabbard at the same time, but those were in a collection, if I recall correctly, of an individual that actually got me interested in antiquities in the first place back in the 90s. He's no longer with us, and when his estate sold off, those came with it.
Okay.
But they're, like I said, they're beautiful, beautiful pieces.
Beautiful. Yeah, really beautiful. I mean, this is magnificent. Unbelievable.